Okay, we're gonna try this again. Utah, give me two. Guys, we've been chatting here for about half an hour and you guys just missed out on it. So, welcome into the second take of our Palazzo podcast, Prospects Half Hour. We are going to probably have a little longer show today just because we are going to be talking through the rosters of the Arizona Fall League. And to help me do that today, I do not have my partner in crime, Michael Govier. But to help me out, we have Chad, our resident Palazzo Discord member, who everyone knows from the Discord, and we have Eric Cross, who's known from many places around the internet. And I thank you both guys for coming on here. We've got a few games in for each team now. We got going to have a handful for each team by the end of today, and I guess what we're going to do here is just kind of go through the Arizona Fall League's rosters, and we're going to kind of tell you some of the top prospects on each one, and then guys that we're looking forward to see play on each roster. Eric, you're going to be out there this year, and tell everyone, I guess, a little bit about why you're going to be out there. Tell us a little bit about First Pitch Arizona for those who are not initiated in.
Yeah, First Pitch Arizona is a phenomenal event run by Brenton Hershey, Ray Murphy, and all the great folks over at Baseball HQ. This is probably for Arizona. I started going in 19. Obviously, we missed 20. So this will be my fifth year out in Arizona. Went to the Florida one a few times as well. And then, obviously, I know it's a time commitment. You get vacation from work, the money, the travel, all of that. But if it's something you can pull off, I absolutely recommend it. It's a very welcoming atmosphere. Very, a lot of great people. People, we talk on the internet or here on podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to finally when you meet those people and put up actually face to face instead of just through a computer or on Twitter or whatever. So there's a lot of great events that great panels and just baseball talk in general. Obviously, the fall league going on at the same time. It's always around the Fall Stars game. They have a home run derby now. Like last year's home run derby was incredibly fun. I got to bring a glove out this year. It's absolutely got to bring my mitt out this year. But this is the whole event. They do such a great job with it, and it's so fun to go out every year. It's something as long as I'm able to do it, both financially and time wise and work wise, something I'm going to try to do every year moving forward.
I will say this year, there were good guys last year to watch for that home run derby. I'm really looking forward to a few guys that are likely going to be in that home run derby this year because there's some big boppers on the rosters as we go through them. But, we're going to start with the Glendale roster, the Glendale Desert Dogs, which, guys, if you don't know the names of these teams down there, that's one of the best parts about the Arizona Fall League is the team names are just amazing. But kind of looking through this roster, some of your top prospects going to be Jake Eder from the Chicago White Sox, Brian Mata of the Boston Red Sox, Kevin Pareda of the New York Mets, and Colson Montgomery is probably the very top prospect here with the Chicago White Sox. And, I guess I'll start. I guess who would like to chat first on this roster and who you're looking forward to see?
Yeah, I'll lead off here. I want to see Brian Ramos because there's a few other guys I want to see. I want to see Kevin Parada as well, Yainer Fernandez, obviously Eder and Colson Montgomery because a lot of what the AFL is for me, or at least a chunk of it, is seeing guys I just don't have a chance to see throughout the minor league season just because none of their minor league affiliates come anywhere near me up in the Northeast here. So, and of course, the White Sox are not in any of the leagues that I can get to. So, Brian Ramos is probably one of the more interesting guys on this roster. Obviously, Montgomery is the big name, but Ramos, quietly had a very good year as well. He's a bigger guy, 6'2", 225, very solid frame. Not big in a bad way, just a very solid frame, very strong guy. It's a plus power bat. Had 15 home runs this year in just 81 games. Hit 264, 358 OBP. Walks, right around a little over 10% of the time. And he's kept the K rate under 25%. That's very good to see as well. Doesn't provide a lot of speed. Like, he's never going to be a guy that provides more than like a handful of steals annually. But the bat is very legit, and I think he's still being slept on a bit here too, and he's still pretty young too. He was Double A for most of the year, and he's 21 years old now, so still pretty young. A lot of upside with that bat. So and he's one that I got. Maybe he's in the home run derby. We'll see who they pick, but definitely one of the more intriguing guys on this roster for me.
Excellent. Chad, who's your guy you're looking at for this?
For me, it's got to be Jake Eater.
Mm-hmm.
Part of a long and deep Miami pitching factory. Gets traded away this year, coming off of injury. Was good in the middle portion before the trade. Really fell off. Couldn't miss a bat to save his life once traded. But there are scouts I've talked to that think after Tiedemann and maybe Snelling, this is the highest upside left-handed pitcher in all of minor league baseball.
Yeah, and we're doing this on second take, so you guys are going to hear this story again. But I was talking to somebody about Max Meyer when he and Eater were together in Pensacola in 21, and I just asked him about Meyer stuff, what he thought, and he made the comment. He said, Meyer's all well and good, but the guy you need to know is Jake Eater off of this roster. That's one of the best pitchers I've seen this year. Well, they had some very legit talent that came through that team. I was just pulling it up here again. Edward Cabrera, I don't remember if he was on the roster active at that moment or had passed through, but they've had a number of pitchers come off of that roster that year and make the majors already. So that was a pretty darn good pitching staff, and he was picking out Eater out of it. So it tells you where that ceiling was previously, previous to the injury. But yeah, definitely a guy I'm looking forward to. The guy I mentioned here was Kalaya Rosario in the Twin system, and I mentioned if he would have been on a team that didn't have Emmanuel Rodriguez, he probably would have gotten a little more notice for the year he had. But just really, really, really big power. Hawaii high school guy in the 2020 draft, so he has been definitely under the radar because not coming from a big baseball area. And that 2020 draft, there were a lot of kids picked that aren't turning out so great. But he's got some athletic ability beyond what he showed this year on the base paths. I was surprised to see he only had 2 stolen bases this year, but powered out 27 doubles and 21 home runs in high A for Cedar Rapids, and nearly doubled his walk rate this year. And, that's an impressive thing. There's a lot of swing and miss in the game, but, I guess I'll bring back the first take we tried on this. Eric, you mentioned that's, a big swing. If he can hit at that 250 level, that with the big power he has, even if he has some strikeout, if he can keep the strikeouts manageable at that 250 rate, that's an easy corner power bat.
Yeah, and it's kind of a similar issue to what Emmanuel Rodriguez had, where they're both pretty big power bats and just had that issue of too much swing and miss in the profile, and part of it was being too passive. It's great to have higher walk rates and all, but at the same time, if you're too passive and you're getting yourself into too many 2-strike counts, that'll elevate your K rate higher than maybe your swing and miss issues should indicate that where your K rate should be. So yeah, that's something I want to see with him. A little bit better pitch selection, because this absolutely could be kind of your prototypical corner outfield power bat, which we mentioned earlier. The Twins have 7,000 of these guys. They have a type, and they keep going back to the well over and over and over again. We'll see how this all pans out in the long term here with the big picture with that roster. But yeah, definitely a lot of intrigue there with Rosario for sure.
All right, so we're going to kick into Mesa, and let me pull that one up on the stage here. And I believe it's the Solar Sox, correct? Isn't that the Mesa team? All right.
Probably the most boring name out of any of the 6
Yeah, I was
teams.
just going to say that's sadly, that's about the most It's one of the most boring. But your top prospect here is pretty easily Kevin Alcantara. There's some other guys. You got Max Muncy had some high draft pedigree, and James Triantos was kind of a top 100 thing for a moment there. But Eric, you were saying that your guy on this roster is someone who might be the best prospect on this roster, even as we start to get into list season at the end of the year. So,
yeah, I think the top two in terms of my own rankings on this roster are Kevin Alcantara and Zach DeCenzo from the Houston Astros. And it's funny too, even though this organization continues to pump out good prospect after good prospect, on both sides of the ball, a lot of these guys continue to get undervalued, even their bigger names now. Like, Bregman was a big name prospect. Correa before he left was a big name prospect. But guys like Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, they weren't like massive names. And Zach DeCenzo, I think, should be a big name prospect. I think he's a top 50 caliber prospect right now. A guy that has big time power. He's a big guy, 6'4", 220, can really drive the ball to all fields. 18 home runs this year and 23 doubles in just 94 games between high A and double A. Hit 305 and even added 22 steals as well, which is, was pretty surprising given that he only had 5 attempts total in college in 165 games, and he went 22 for 24 this year on the base pass. So maybe that's, I don't think he's going to be a 20 steal guy, but even if he can just add maybe 10 steals a year to a potential, 25 plus power bat and a solid average OBP to go along with it. Yeah, I think he's going to be, if he has a big AFL showing, he already has a home run out there this week. He's one of those guys where the helium could really, really start to take off, and see his prospect stock rise considerably heading into next year.
Kind of reminds me a bit of another Astros guy from last year with Will Wagner, who came in with the tools and really showed out. Now, Will doesn't have anywhere near the overall ability, and that's why Will is still in the minor leagues. But, that type of guy that could really, really show out down in the AFL and get a lot of positive reports afterwards.
Yep.
So Chad, how about you? Who's your guy with the Mesa team?
So every year I look for the unknown. I look for the pitcher that there's not a lot of tape on. Because one, you'll see how good is this pitcher because he's getting thrown into the Lions then, but also how good are these hitters because they're hitting against something they don't have any data on. Last year for me, that was Abner Uribe. He was coming off a lost season, and he's just skyrocketed since then. This year for me, it's Carter Baumler, who's come off multiple surgeries. He's under 30 pro innings. Just there's really nothing to go on other than the Orioles really like this kid. And if the Orioles really like a kid, that tends to work out.
Yeah.
Usually does, yep.
And that's, we were saying before, that's an organization where, they still definitely have the top minor league organization right now, but it's really hitter heavy. So if you can show out as a pitcher, you're going to have an opportunity to move pretty quick in that organization. I can't believe that they would hold you back. For me on this, my guy was Royber Salinas with Oakland, and elite fastball, a very hard slider that gets a lot of swing and miss. He just has to control it. And this is a guy who I will say a couple of years back, he was a guy that folks were a little worried was going to kind of eat his way out of professional baseball. He had added a lot of weight to his frame. And I'm not saying he's a skinny guy by any means now, but he's significantly improved that overall frame compared to what he was. It's better weight. Let's put it that way. As a fellow fat guy, I can say that the weight looks a lot better on him as far as how he's moving and things like that. For him, it's probably, I don't know if there's really a line to a starter profile anymore for Salinas, but boy, there's just nobody going to stop him from taking a big time role in Oakland if he can show he can control upper 90s fastball and a upper 80s slider. He's going to be able to move pretty quick into a pretty prominent role in that bullpen in Oakland. So, that's a guy that you definitely want to know going forward for fantasy community, because that might be a guy who's at the back end of their bullpen by the end of the next year if he's completely converted into the bullpen role. So,
and Oakland's very aggressive with that type of player usually.
So, all right. So our next one is the Peoria Javelinas. Is that? I think I've got saying that right.
Yep, you are.
So Peoria is probably the most loaded team as far as elite prospects are concerned. You've got Harry Ford, you've got Kyle Mazzardo, you've got Carson Williams, you've got Chase DeLauder, Jacob Marzy's a big personal cheese ball of mine. But gosh, you just go up and down, and if you want to get in draft pedigree, Jacob Berry was a big time draft prospect when he came out. There's some very, very high end, both on specifically in their lineup, but their pitchers are nothing to sneeze at either. They brought some raw talent. It may be a lot of guys that are looking to work their way back from injury, but it's a lot of talent for sure. So I guess we'll start with Chad. Chad, who do you see as kind of your guy on this roster?
My guy is someone who right now is being completely overshadowed by a trio of guys I'm sure are going to be mentioned soon enough. But that's Chase DeLauder. This is someone who going into this year, and you thought I was crazy for this, Ben, was someone I thought was going to ascend very quickly and be a big reason why the Guardians not only won their division, won the World Series. Injuries kind of derailed that plan. But he's in a position, especially after the year the Guardians had, that he could just flip a switch here, have a monster AFL, and there is room for him right out of the gate next year.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the more impressive athletes you watch when he gets on the field. That's for sure. And man, the pure power when he from the left side, when he really connects with one, it's really fun to watch. So Eric, how about you? Who's your guy on this Peoria roster?
So before I say mine, I just want to say about Chase DeLauder. I am insanely high on Chase DeLauder. I have been since the draft he was in. And I'll say this right now, assuming he can stay healthy next year and doesn't graduate by the end of the year, which I don't think he will, I think there's a pretty solid chance he's a top 10 fantasy prospect by the end of next year.
I thought he was going to be number 2 by the end of this year.
Yeah, the upside is absolutely there. I mean, he hit very well at the end of the season. He already has a home run out there in the AFL. So yeah, I am insanely high on Chase DeLauder and Peoria in general. Outside of having the best roster, I think they have the best name and the best logo. It's like a pissed off looking boar or something like that. I'm definitely I almost bought some swag. I wanted to get a hat. I'm just not a hat guy in general, so I'm gonna get like a shirt or a hat, something, some Peoria swag when I'm out there, and maybe some other ones. There's a lot of good logos, like Surprise Sagueros are pretty good as well. A lot of good names and logos. But anyway, picking just there's so many. Like you mentioned, there's so many good prospects on this. I have 9 top 200 prospects in my rankings are on this team. 7 in the top 100. 5 in the top 50. Like no other team can match the star power here. DeLauder obviously is one of my top guys. Graham Pauley, though, he is another guy like DeCenzo, had a really good year. He's balling out there already. Already has a pair of home runs and 8 RBI through the first few games here. And this is a guy that the bat is legit. He can barrel up the ball, drive it to all fields. He went 20-20 this year to 23-22 to be exact. Also had 32 doubles, and this was just in 127 games. Good walk rate, keeps the K rate in check, solid contact skills. One of those guys that he won't wow you in any one area, but he's pretty damn good across the board.
Yeah. And
this is a guy that has moved around the diamond a little bit. This year he played mostly third, some second, a little bit of outfield as well. So I think that flexibility is going to be helpful because obviously there's not a lot of huge openings on that San Diego team right now. And this is a guy that he could maybe debut second half of 2024. I think he's getting fairly close. You got the Double-A this year. Probably starts back there in 2024, but up to Triple-A quickly. But he's a guy that he's already, like I said, already off to a really hot start. And another one that I think if he continues this and then just really has a phenomenal AFL showing, like his stock is going to rise a ton heading into next year.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I did not see that whatsoever out of him in college. Watching him at Duke, I didn't see that kind of a player. He's really, really put in the work, and he's become a legit prospect, which, on this team of holy crap hitting, that says something when people, I mean, I think there are a lot of people I've heard mention his name as someone they're eager to see, which that says so much for what he has done to improve his stock as a player.
It's because he picked the wrong North Carolina college to go to. Like I'm a big UNC Tar Heel guy. He should have went to the Tar Heels. Just saying.
So I'm supposed to say no. You should have gone to NC State instead, just to round it out.
Are you an NC State guy?
No. I'm just.
Oh, okay.
we're just trying to get some contrarian going. For me, the guy. We mentioned this roster is a lot of hitting and then a lot of pitching you're kind of hoping on. When he was taken in 2021 out of the University of Georgia, Ryan Webb, when he was picked by Cleveland, I said, that's what a Cleveland guy looks like. That's what a guy that they're going to take. They're going to do a few things with him, and he's going to end up in the majors pitching 180 innings with a low 3 ERA, and just you're going to go, how the hell does he do it? That's the profile. Well, he's ended up having surgery, and he's coming back and working back from that this year, which is why he's in the AFL, is to kind of get those innings under his belt, because I don't know if there is a frontline guy here, unless the Indians. I need to put a quarter in the jar. The Guardians work their magic with him, and he ends up becoming more than what his raw stuff would label. But he's a legit talent that could be that kind of back end guy that the Guardians just seem to get a little bit more out of. So. Owes me. All right. So
before we go on, it'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Jacob Marcy and what he's done so far. And Ryan Bliss too, but Bliss is a lot more of a known quantity. Marcy just even making Paulie's numbers look tame. Like these are numbers you look at the end of the AFL and he must have got injured, but that's an amazing line. He's done this in like 10 at-bats.
Yeah.
2 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 2 walks. Like, that's a month, not a week.
And he had one of the best statistical years in the minor leagues this year, all around. I mean, guy put up 16 home runs and 46 steals with a 274, 413, 428 line. He just kind of fits that leadoff profile extremely well. But there's enough power there to where he's not just that one-dimensional, traditional leadoff profile. But he can do that, and more walks than strikeouts. The guy, which, there's not a whole lot of guys you see anymore coming up through the minors and getting up to Double-A, and you can say they finished the year with more walks than strikeouts. So. Yeah, definitely a big fan of Marcy on my side of things. All right, so let's move to the Salt River Rafters, which I'll be honest that every now and then I think that the name of the town is Salt and that they're the River Rafters, but that's a whole nother thing, and that's on me there. So, all right, this club to me has some definite major league balance of appeal with some guys that have seen the majors already, but prospects that you're probably looking for, Salt River. I mean, the Tigers really provided a lot of them. Wilmer Flores, Jackson Jobe, Jace Young, Drew Romo, and Sterling Thompson from the Rockies are both on this roster, and they've been top 100 guys. You know, you got high-end draft draft background like Benny Montgomery. I mean, you got some guys that are names here. Eric, who's your guy that you're looking forward to seeing off of this roster?
Well, I hate to go to the biggest name, but it has to be Jackson Jobe for me. Like, this is a guy that is in the discussion for number one overall pitching prospect, which is a fun discussion right now. I don't think there's a clear-cut one. You know, I think there's a pretty clear-cut, like, top tier for me, and it's a fairly, I think it's like a 5 or 6 player tier, and he's absolutely one of them. Obviously, Paul Skeens, Ricky Tiedemann, Cade Horton. I think you can probably just go with those 4 for now. I'm probably forgetting somebody at this point. I know I'm forgetting somebody, but yeah, he's in that top tier. And as I'm trying to pull up my ranking,
Painter and Hens.
Yeah, I don't have Hens there personally. I think there's some, obviously the upside is very exciting with Hens. I saw him last year, but I think there's a lot of reliever risk with Tinka. He's in that next tier. Absolutely tier 2 for me. Painter.
I know Mizorowski's a big name for a lot of people. He's not on my radar.
Yeah, he's tier 2 for me as well. Oh, Robbie Snelling. I knew there's one more game. Robbie Snelling. Yeah, so for me, it's Skeens, Jobe, Tiedemann, Horton, Snelling, and that tier 1 for me. And you could arrange those any which way, and I'd be totally fine with it. Right now, at this very second, I have Jobe as my number 2 guy. Skeens as 1. That could very well change before the end of the next month. But Jobe, I think everyone talks about the upside as they should, but to look at, he only had 8 walks this year.
Yeah.
8. Like he had, I forget what I had a tweet on September 12th that he was the only. Let's see, there was only 5 pitching prospects since 2006 to have a 33% K rate or better and a sub 2% walk rate when having more than 40 innings at a particular level. That is just insane. Like how polished he is. Like everyone knows the swing and miss stuff is phenomenal. He's at the big arsenal, but the fact that he is so advanced for his age is just incredibly exciting that he's doing this already at just such a young age, 20. So he's one that I hopefully have a chance to see next year in Double-A, as Detroit is in the same league as my home team here in Maine. But hopefully, when I'm out there for those few days, he's lines up the pitch, or if not, I'll probably see him in the Fall Stars game at the very least for like an inning, because he is just so exciting there, and he's gonna be one. I know people, the Detroit fans were kind of kicking themselves when they passed on Marcelo Mayer a few years ago, but that might have been the right choice. And I love Mayer, obviously, as my Red Sox. I think he's gonna be a great player as well. But Jobe looks like he's gonna be a stud.
Yep, absolutely. Hard to argue that. Chad, who's your guy? The most
impressive thing for me with Jobe is he's come back from an injury that so often is just completely derailing to your mechanics, and just instantly came roaring in, and it just hasn't stopped. And that just shows how ridiculously high his ceiling is. Your list actually made me sad because it made me remember that 2 off seasons ago, I traded away 3 of those names in my Dynasty League. But for me, it's got to be Ivan Melendez. Just we need to see something, something that shows he can overcome some of the strikeout issues, because it wasn't a great year, and it's a year where there was real issues at that position in Arizona for a while, and he should have been in contention for that spot and was never even close. And it's not been a good start to the AFL for him either. I believe he's 0 for 10 already. And just the power is top 5 in the minors, I think. And I just want to be able to see it. I don't get a lot of Arizona minor league action now here on the East Coast. I want to see him actually showcase that power for once.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I guess the guy who I'm mentioning and or who I had written down is Caleb Roberts, who I think a lot of folks don't know who he is. And quite frankly, I'm not 100% sure where all he might end up playing in the AFL. But Roberts was a guy he actually went to the right North Carolina school. He was from UNC and went to the Diamondbacks and he put together a year that he was really impressive at Amarillo. And I guess, 17 home runs, 11 steals out of a guy who's primarily playing catcher, but he's played around a little bit. He's played some outfield. I guess, and first base. I was just going to say, I don't remember him playing as a professional anywhere else, but even in college, he played some third, so this is a guy who's flexible enough to play around a little bit. I really was impressed with his eye at the plate when I got some video view on him. Just some excellent patience, and then he took a couple balls the other way. One went foul, the other one landed for a nice double. He's a guy I'm interested to see just because he could be that kind of an offensive catching backup. I don't know if he's got the skills behind the plate to be a full-time catcher, but I don't know. He's one that definitely caught my eye when I was looking through these rosters. So I'm pulling up here. Let's get to our next squad, which is the Scottsdale Scorpions, if I'm correct. Yeah. Yes, because I was going to say we only have two of the great names left, and I think they're, to me, two of the better team names there, the Scorpions and then the Sagueros. But so as we go through Scottsdale, this is, in my opinion, and very well could be your guys' too, to me, this is the least prospect-laden roster in the AFL. I had down, you've got some fringe 100 guys like DJ Hers, Cooper Sherpy, Takeo Roby. You got Robert Hassel III, if he can get anything going here. And Victor Scott, who was just an elite stolen base guy this year. I mean, other than that, I guess I'm curious to hear, what you guys have to say here. I mean, other than watching Sonny DeChario try and run around the bases, which is absolutely something everyone should do. What are you guys looking forward to seeing out of the Scottsdale club?
For me, it's Reggie Crawford. Outside the names you already mentioned, Reggie Crawford definitely intriguing. And as a two-way guy, he's big dude, 6'4", 235. But again, like a solid, strong 235. A very, very physical frame. Big fastball slider combination, but hasn't really developed the third pitch. He has a changeup. It's not that good so far. Command control very inconsistent as well. And then on the hitting side, this guy that has he's for obviously just like a first base DH type on the hitting side, but legit big time power potential. So I want to see, and the guy that gets on base at a good clip too, or has a potential to. So he's one where I want to see kind of how he looks, and this guy obviously with the two-way, very intriguing, but he has legit two-way aspirations here, and it'll be fun to see how the Giants kind of use him moving forward, how they develop him moving forward. Obviously, they've had some good things go through their org recently, and obviously they've done a lot of good things on the pitching side at the major league level as well. So really intrigued to see how he's developed over the next year or two, because there's a lot of upside here. If he can develop that third pitch, if he can improve the contact skills, or maybe he picks one or the other and focuses on just that and really flourishes that way. So a lot of paths here with Crawford. So I want to see him out in the AFL a lot.
Yeah, and he fell into the perfect organization because it really feels like the Giants are one of the few that are determined and dedicated to support the two-way aspirations. We saw they picked up another one this year in Bryce Eldridge, who in pre-draft talk, everyone was saying he's not going to get the chance to be a two-way player.
Yeah.
But for me, it's got to be DJ Hers.
Okay.
I mentioned to Eric on Twitter, actually, when he tweeted out about Hers' stat line from the other night, that it was so nice to just see people talking about him. Because it's never really been an issue of talent. He's had some up and down. He's a solid, probably mid-rotation guy. There's some upside. But he just got completely forgotten about after a while. Kate Horn was the shiny new toy. Ben Brown kind of blew up.
And, I watched an interview with Alexander Canario, and they were asking him, and this was mid-season. It was a minor league interview. They're asking him, so who's the one guy on your own team that you're glad you don't have to face? And mind you, this is when Kate Horton had gotten up to that club. They had a very solid amount of, he had been around Ben Brown. He'd seen some of those. He's like, I don't want to face DJ. Okay. That says something to you when it's some kind of some funky delivery, and it's really nice stuff overall. I don't know. I've liked him for a while in the Cubs system. I thought that was a really good get for the Nationals.
I love the deal for him. And God knows they need pitchers.
Well, yeah.
Sure do.
So my guy on this is going to come from one of those deals that, the Phillies have done a lot of things very well over the last couple of years. This deal may go down as one of the worst things they've done in the last couple of years, and that was trading for Noah Syndergaard and giving up Mickey Moniak and JDL Sanchez. And Sanchez is the guy who I'm highlighting here. He's in the outfield for this roster, and I've really been impressed this year watching him when I could, that he doesn't give away a single at bat, and yet he doesn't swing and miss very much either. He's a guy that gets very deep in a lot of at bats, and I don't know that he had even a 20% strikeout rate this year. Ended up finishing the year with double-digit doubles, double-digit triples, double-digit home runs. That's not exactly something a lot of guys do. Still low A ball, single A ball, whatever you want to call it, but the raw talent is absolutely there. And I kind of want to see what he's going to be able to do against some of the pitching that's out there this year, which, we know that's one of the better pitching groups we've had in Arizona, maybe ever, and so for him to have a chance to face some of this pitching is going to be a good barometer as far as where he's going. So, all right, our last but not least squad is, maybe the best name out there, but the surprise Saguaros. And as I kind of roll that team down here, the big name here is obviously Ricky Tiedemann. And there may not be the polish of prospect status on any of the bats, but a couple of guys that really blew up this year in their outfield, and Jacob Hurtubise. I don't, you can help me with that pronunciation, but then Abimelech Ortiz is the other one that really had, both of those guys had big seasons this year on the minor league level. So I guess, Chad, you want to lead us off here? Who are you looking forward to on this roster to see?
So for me, the surprise for me was how hard it was to find someone on this roster, just because it's not bad. It's just a little on the bland side.
Mm-hmm.
But from what little I've seen of the Arizona Fall League, for me, I'm going to butcher his name. Damiano Palmagiani.
I think you're pretty. I think it's Palmagiani. I think you're pretty close.
Yeah.
But I've just liked I don't know much about him, but from the at bats I've seen, I like the bat to ball skills. I like the eye showed. And I'm just interested to see more and then dig back in to older footage and learn more about him.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be honest, that's not a guy I've got a ton on. I mean, he's popped up a few times as I'm putting together stuff this year because he had some really good power numbers overall. I think 23 bombs is what I pulled up here and 33 doubles. Got up to AAA, I guess. I didn't even realize he was that close to the majors. So yeah, there's good name to get to know, I guess, for someone who had some good production. Obviously, a lot of swing and miss on the year, but if he can control that, there's obviously some power to that bat too. So, Eric, how about you? Who's your guy on this roster?
Can I cheat and say two?
I was just gonna say, yeah,
There are two. Like obviously, Bevan Cortez. I mean, that's not one of my two, but he's obviously a big time power bat guy that's risen up rankings a ton this year. But I've seen Tiedemann a few times. He's always obviously he's one of the top pitch prospects in the game. But the two that I'm really intrigued to see that I have not seen live yet are Gavin Cross and Emiliano Teodo from Kansas City and Texas Oryx, respectively. Gavin Cross, outside of having a phenomenal last name, is a guy that I was very high on entering this year, coming out of the draft out of Virginia Tech, and he didn't really do as much. He had a nice little power speed blend, but the K rate rose up and the contact skills went down. So I want to see if he can correct that because I was very high on him. I thought he used to be a nice offensive outfielder. So I want to see if he can kind of get some momentum heading into next year. And then Emiliano Teodo from Texas is one of the more electric arms, in the lower levels of the minor leagues. I was in high A South Atlantic League this year. And the numbers, you get a 4.5 ERA, 1.4 WHIP. Those aren't going to jump off the page, but my co-host on Toolshed, Chris Clegg, saw him live, and it was kind of raving about how fun of an arm he is. Still a bit rough around the edges. Got to trim that walk rate a bit. Pound the zone more. But the upside is there if that can happen and he can find some of that polish and pound the zone more. There's a good amount of upside there, or maybe he's a high leverage bullpen arm. We'll see, but just one of those exciting arms that I'll never get to see outside of the AFL. So definitely looking forward to hopefully at least getting an inning or two of him out there.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm going to go with a guy who, I want to see it happen, and that's Beck Way in the Royals system. And Chad and I were talking before we hit record that he's got that stuff. It's just that you don't know if he's ever going to figure out enough of it to potentially move to potentially hold in the rotation. But man, if he moves to the bullpen with his raw stuff and he can just control it somewhat, he's going to be elite. The control absolutely left him this year. That's easily what happened, or easily the big issue that he had in his year this year. But this is a guy who, a lot of people liked in coming out of community college in the 2020 draft. And he's just kind of that big power guy that you'd think, yeah, that's kind of what it can look like when they do everything right. But when you can't locate it and you end up starting to aim your stuff, you end up, even with a heavy fastball, giving up 10 home runs in 80 innings, which is what he did this year, So if he can do it, I'd love to see him. They started to move him into the bullpen a little bit this year, but man, if he ends up becoming a bullpen arm, there's another team. We talked about the A's earlier. Beck Way would have a very clear path to bullpen time next year in Kansas City if he had, nobody, or if he got moved into the bullpen full time, because I think he would move very quickly. So
I think we could say the same with his teammate there, Angel Zerpa.
Yeah.
Same kind of issues. It really felt like Kansas City just threw everyone that they couldn't get right this year into the AFL and just said, do something for us, please. We have nothing else.
And that's so I guess my other question for you guys, who do you guys see as being the fun guy to watch in the home run derby? I mean, we've mentioned a few of them, but who are the guys you're kind of looking forward to possibly seeing in that home run derby?
I think if we're just talking strictly power, I think Melendez is the guy that I think he's going to hit some absolute tanks. Like, and there was a few last year too. Like it was a fun derby last year, and I think Melendez is going to be one of those guys that's just going to hit some absolute tank jobs. Like it's going to be fun to watch him take batting practice and before the Fall Stars game, and yeah, I think he's probably off the top of my head probably the guy that would be one of the favorites in that.
Yeah.
The only other name that comes to mind for me is TT Bones.
Yeah, and for me, it's got to be Ortiz. That's
Ortiz,
I don't know Ortiz.
Too, yeah.
He's though. I don't know. I think that could be so much fun this year, just because I think there are some guys completely different approach, but I could absolutely see DeCenzo doing really well in a home run derby, hitting line drive shot after line drive shot to go out. He's not going to hit the ones that are pretty on the video the same way that Ivan Melendez will. So, well, guys, I don't have anything else for you guys. What else? Is there anything else you guys are looking forward to this year down in the AFL?
I mean, just getting that baseball itch, kind of scratched for a little bit. Obviously, minor leagues wrapped up, a few weeks ago, and obviously we got postseason baseball, but just the fact that there's that long gap between being able to go to live games, and even I'm wanting to be out there and see a handful of games. I think it's just like getting that, like I said, getting that itch scratched a little bit to help get me through until spring training and the minor leagues start up again next season. So, and just seeing everybody, it's. A lot of people that I've met in this industry that have become friends, and just being able to see them again, joke around, obviously do all the baseball stuff, but even just like hanging out after everything's done, maybe we just sit around, a fire and talk, talk baseball, talk life. There's always usually a poker game that goes on every now and then, and you're just, hanging out. I think it's just with the people that you've, interacted with a ton. It's like our little baseball family here. That we interact with every single day on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now. But yeah, just seeing everybody again, it's always fun.
Excellent.
And for me, I'm just happy to see baseball that's less embarrassing than that Brewers Diamondback series that just happened. Because I've never seen two baseball teams want it less.
I gotta say, watching, getting to watch that Diamondbacks team, there are so many fun players on it. I really enjoy it. And same thing, I think Milwaukee's getting there too. It's going to be fun to watch to see how those two organizations do moving forward. But man, you got to admit the playoffs that we've got coming are going to be some really fun matchups. I mean, I'm kind of intrigued to see what Minnesota does against Houston. Because if you were to ask me coming into the playoffs, a healthy Brewers staff would have kind of been my easy number one staff in the playoffs. But the Twins' depth is kind of up there. I mean, when you can throw up Pablo and Sonny, and you got Maeda just sitting back there, and Joe Ryan, and you got a lot of good arms that they can use in a playoff series. That's going to be a fun series, because I don't know that Houston's arms are up to the same par that they've been recently. But I suppose, the ghost of Justin Verlander could come back out and get us all this offseason too, or this postseason too. So.
The death is a real issue for Houston. Like we saw before he was ruled out with an illness, the make or break game was going to be JP France starting. And I love him. He's in my dynasty. But that's not who you want for a make it or break it game.
So, and being a Braves guy, that Braves Phillies series,
there's going to be so many brawls in that game.
So much fun.
It's going to be so violent.
I don't know about that, but they definitely get after it. And I will say, it's fun to watch if you ever take the time to watch Ronald Acuna and Bryce Harper interacting before the game. Those two have such respect for each other. It's really funny to see them go back and forth. I am eager to have one of the two of them mic'd up while Harper is playing first and Acuna gets on first, because I want to hear what the back and forth is, because I think that would be just amazing. But
It's funny too. Harper obviously gets a little bit of a bad rap. He's brash, he's outlandish, but at the same time, like if you ever watched him, like you mentioned, he has such an huge, outstanding respect for the game and his fellow players. He loves the game. You could absolutely tell that passion is there and that respect is there. So yeah, but while he, people don't like him because he yells a lot and does, throws his bat, does this and that. I think that he's just such a passionate dude. And I think that sometimes just bubbles over the surface, as it can for all of us, right? So, but yeah, just seeing like the respect he has for the game and his fellow players is really cool to watch.
It didn't help they went to the one team no one likes either.
Yeah. Well, one of my best videos ever of Bryce Harper is a Braves fan that was heckling him from behind, and he's in the dugout, and they're telling him he's not going to ever be as good as Acuna.
Yeah.
And he turns around and he's like, "It's Acuna."
Yep.
Acuna.
which just shows like
great.
Yeah, I saw that one too. Yeah, which just shows like he respects Ronald. And obviously, some of these players and some of the general public doesn't know like the exact pronunciations, but with Acuna, you should know. Like Acuna is not exactly like a fourth outfielder or a guy that's pitching the sixth inning out of the bullpen. Like he's Ronald freaking Acuna. You should probably know how to say his name.
Yeah. That series is going to be fascinating. You have the young rotation of the Braves. You have the budding superstars. Bryson Stott's having a breakout postseason so far.
It's going to be a 12-round boxing match. It's going
to be fun.
If this series doesn't go the full length, I will be absolutely shocked.
Here's what I'm worried about.
I think a lot of people will be upset.
Yeah.
So.
This is going to be to the very last pitch of the very last game. That's for certain. What I'm worried about is then we go on to LA and it's a 4-game sweep, and then what was the point? Because that would just deflate everyone at that point.
The Dodgers after Kershaw, though, like there's some question marks. Obviously, with Urias out now, who they gonna rely on after Kershaw? And heaven forbid he has a bad outing. I don't know. Like I'm a little worried. If I'd be a Dodgers fan, obviously the offense is phenomenal, but where's the pitching? They rely on some young guys to help them.
I think they finally gave the keys to Pepio, and he's run with them.
Yeah,
there's something special there.
I love the talent of Bobby Miller and Ryan Pepio, but man, if I'm going into the playoffs, I would much rather have one of those two guys starting in my top three, not two. And that's the scary part to me is they kind of need to make sure Kershaw goes 6 because what you just don't know for sure what you're getting out of those guys. And that's kind of a crazy thing for the Dodgers to have that kind of an issue with their depth, but it is where they're at this year. So I guess you could go throw Lance Lynn out there and see how many balls you can get knocked out of the park. But
yeah, well, they probably don't want to do that.
So, well, guys,
having Lynn though is great for them if Kershaw gets cut short, because then they don't have to burn the pen ahead of the young guys.
Yeah, he can eat those innings for sure.
So, Eric, is there anything you want to highlight that you've got going on, you're working on that's coming out anytime soon here? So
yeah, it's funny in the prospect dynasty world, it's almost like we're more busy during the off season than the regular season. But yeah, I got a lot going on over on my Patreon. Obviously, rankings galore. FYPD rankings are kind of next on the docket here. With everyone's I already have my initial top 100 out, but I'll be putting the update out here within the next week or so. I'm doing team by team prospect rankings, positional prospect rankings, and I'll be putting the top 40s for each team, and then I'll be doing the top 10 of those, live or free on Rotoballer, so everyone can see those as well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Toolshed podcast is still going on. Doing some stuff at Rotoballer. Taking a little bit of a break over at FTN until we do the draft kit, but a lot of great, go check out their stuff for football and whatnot. But yeah, it's a lot of fun stuff. I love this time of year. People I think it's like the drag October, November. It is kind of the dead season, but still so much fun stuff. And you can really dig in because numbers, data, I think everything's set. Nothing's changing overnight. You can really start digging in. You have more time to dig into these players that you might not have had time to do during the season. So it's a fun time of year for sure.
Yeah. Well, and Eric, you're one of the hustlingest guys I know of in the industry. So yeah, I love watching just kind of, I know being a fellow person on Rotoballer, what you've got come out there, because I see that coming down the line. But man, I'll just watch your Twitter sometimes and go, God, he's always doing that too. Like, when do you have time to get that done? And so yeah, it's an impressive thing to watch. But yeah, absolutely, check out Eric's stuff. Chad, how about you? You got anything anyone should be looking out for?
Yeah, I'm getting slammed this year after jumping into the football world. I'm putting out content for QB List. I'm putting out content on the Plaza Podcast Patreon. I'm going to be digging into the international signing period soon for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get some content out for that soon enough. And then the rest of the offseason, I'm just going to be reading Eric's Twitter.
There you go.
My home league has a spreadsheet where we keep all the data, who's won what, who's got which prospect. And there's just a tab that just says Eric Cross's rankings.
There you go. Well, guys, thank you both for coming on. I think folks, if they don't know the Arizona Fall League, they absolutely should after looking through all this. So I thank you both very much for coming on, for chatting about this. And I'm really looking forward to watching some Arizona fall ball. So thank you both. And with that, we will sign off and look forward to talking to you again soon here on the Palazzo Prospects Half Hour.